The hidden symmetry of the Navier-Stokes and Riemann Zeta functions. Overture consumable data and living flow. Why do airplanes fly only when they burn energy? And the Earth revolves without fuel? The plane is flying in the sky. But wait a minute look at the shape of the plane. It is elongated. It is a form designed to move forward, moving from side to side or up and down, somehow forced and unnatural. The current way of flying is simple. It explodes energy to create acceleration and uses that force to pierce the air. It is the same as Newton's laws of motion. The principle is no different from firing a cannon at a cannon. If you don't use force, it will fall. If it doesn't stop, you must keep burning. Einstein's general theory of relativity paints a completely different picture. Matter doesn't push space out. Matter causes space itself to bend, and other objects move along with that curvature. It's not force, it's geometry. So, do today's airplanes use this principle? Not at all. The theory has discovered the curvature of space, but civilization still pushes with explosions. There is a huge gap between theory and practice. This is where the counter-argument comes from. Doesn't GPS prove the theory of relativity? The clock on GPS satellites goes faster than on the ground. This error must be corrected with the relativity formula to obtain accurate position information. It seems like strong evidence that the theory of relativity works in reality. However, an important distinction is necessary here. GPS does not directly observe that space is warped. Fluctuations and satellite clocks, that is, observing physical changes in objects, and interpreting them as spatial curvatures. Just because the model fits the phenomenon, just as the model is not real, just because the correction formula of GPS is correct, does not mean that we know the reality of space. It may just be an elaborate main added to explain the phenomenon. Modern physics analyzes river water in a cup and calls it a river. But the moment it is placed in a cup, the river loses its flow and becomes dead data. There is a more fundamental problem. These are examples that do not fit the theory. The rotation speed of galaxies is different from theoretical. Dark matter has been added. Space expansion accelerates, added dark energy still not explained. I add another modification theory. This method of adding auxiliary hypotheses every time a deprivation comes out. The same structure that Ptolemy used to add mains one by one, to protect the geocentric theory. I don't even know the size of the universe. They don't even know the phase structure of the universe. You don't even know what space really is. Discussing space as a whole on top, this may be a modern geocentric theory. Everything is ongoing. The current theory is only the best so far, not the finished truth. Between the theory that space bends, and the reality of constantly putting energy into it, two serious problems emerge. The lack of symmetry for change, and static is only one time and consuming, since there is no cyclicality. 1. Problems of artificial energy input. First, if we continue to artificially inject energy, the convective term of the Navier-Stokes equation is nonlinearly amplified. Acceleration occurs, instability occurs, turbulence persists like inertia. Climate crisis, typhoons, heavy rains. Natural disasters are not caused by nature. It is the result of the accumulation of artificial energy input. In other words, if artificial force is continuously applied, it is like a locomotive without brakes running out of control. The act of forcibly making a path against the flow of nature leads to great resistance turbulence. Second, if space is bent, why do you have to keep putting energy into it to move? The Earth revolves for billions of years without anyone pushing it. The Moon orbits the Earth without fuel. Unless this gap is bridged, spatial curvature is difficult to fully explain reality. It can be said that the Earth's orbit without fuel is not simply because space is curved, but because the dynamic flow of space fluctuation and the inertia of objects are perfectly balanced or symmetrical. 2. Change is not consumption, but creation. If you look at nature, a different principle is at work. A bird riding a turbulent current, an Earth orbiting this is not an exhaustive acceleration. The inertia of space fluctuates. The inertia of an object is in equilibrium with that fluctuation. It's not about writing energy. It's about reading the structure of the energy that already exists. This is where the decisive redefinition comes in. If we look at acceleration as a variant of inertia, the law of conservation of energy fits perfectly. Change does not mean consuming energy, but new energy. New changes, and new wine in a new unit. Energy is not put in from the outside. It is already circulating in space. The object finds a point of equilibrium symmetry in its cyclic structure. There is no creation or extinction of energy, only a change of form. This is true energy conservation. Quantum mechanics already hints at this. Vacuum fluctuations: energy constantly fluctuates in an empty space. It has been experimentally proven with the Kashmir effect. Space is not a static background. It is a field that fluctuates while alive. The bird reads this fluctuation. The Earth is in equilibrium with this fluctuation. Only planes pushing with explosions without knowing this. The essence of what we call infinite power: it's not about creating new energy. It is a balancing technique that uses the inertial energy of a space that already exists and circulates without consumption. Newton discovered power. Einstein discovered the curvature of space. But both fixed and analyzed the changing matter. It is analyzed by putting river water in a cup. The moment it was contained, it was no longer a river. If matter itself is a change, a fixed formula cannot fully capture the change. This is the root reason why physics does not solve it. What civilization needs to learn is not a stronger engine. It is a body that reads the fluctuations of space. Birds have known it for millions of years. It's not like an airplane is flying in the sky, but you have to get on top of the fluctuations of space. The flapping of a bird's wings is not a blow that hits the air, but a delicate conversation that reads the grain. Fluctuation of invisible inertia. The direction of civilization lies not in a larger explosion, but in the wisdom to find a balance point: resonance in the circulation of the universe that is already flowing. Chapter 1: The fluctuation of inertia, a space that is not empty. 1. Fluctuations of inertia: collisions of different currents. The space we often believe to be empty is a place where huge streams of inertial energy, with different speeds and directions, intersect. Just like a huge vortex, hitting at the point where different ocean currents meet, inertial fluctuations occur. When inertial fields with different phases and flows collide, this fluctuation is not simply a disorderly chaos, but a wave of potential energy, in which the elasticity and resilience of space itself begin to act. 2. Calming through resonance: the self-correction of the universe. Fluctuations in natural conditions are not infinitely amplified. The system chooses a method called resonance to find its own balance. When different waves superimpose and resonate at a specific frequency, the energy of the sharp collision is incorporated into a smooth circulation orbit. The Earth revolves around the atomic nucleus, because this fluctuation has found a stable equilibrium point through resonance. Here, energy is not consumed and circulates permanently. Chapter 2: Anthropogenic acceleration and natural disasters. The scream of space. 1. Runaway without artificial force and brakes. The problem is how civilization gets its energy. Nature regulates fluctuations with resonance and circulates them, but humans continue to inject one-sided collision energy into space in the name of acceleration. If you ignore the flow of inertia that has already formed and force energy to pour out, the fluctuations will be nonlinearly amplified without any time to calm down with resonance. It's like continuing to pull the strings beyond the limits of what sound the instrument can make. Eventually, the system's brakes fail, and the overflowing energy is released in the form of turbulence. 2. Natural disasters: the screams of space. Humidity and temperature in the atmosphere are only triggers, and the fundamental cause is the unresolved inertia fluctuations accumulated in space. A huge typhoon or abnormal climate is a process in which excess inertial energy, artificially injected into the space, is forcefully discharged to the outside, in order to regain its own equilibrium. The explosive energy inflicted by humans is returned by nature as an explosive disaster. In other words, the order of nature lies in healing the fluctuations with resonance, but modern civilization amplifies the fluctuations with acceleration. The climate catastrophe we are experiencing is not an anger from the Earth, but an inertial runaway of inertia caused by artificially accelerating energy that exceeds the resilience of space. Chapter 3: Inertia, the prelude to the living fluctuations. 1. The will of voluntary balance rather than law. We try to understand inertia as a fixed law. However, the essence of inertia is not a stuffed formula, but a voluntary balance itself that nature tries to protect itself. The reason people find it difficult to accept this concept is that it is not a mechanical device that operates on a standardized principle. Inertia is not stagnant, but the action of always ongoing that constantly finds the optimal equilibrium, even in a fleeting moment. It is not a dead result, but a living and moving process. 2. Forms of being: waves and fluctuations. Inertia is not a property of matter but exists as waves and fluctuations that fill space. When inertial energies with different flows collide, space fluctuates. This fluctuation is not chaos. It is the gesture of the universe produced by different fields colliding. When these sharp fluctuations begin to resonate by matching each other's frequencies, the rough waves begin to take on the shape of a calm and stable orbit. All ordered matter we see is, in fact, a fleeting state of equilibrium that this violent fluctuation finds through resonance. 3. In the beginning, there was a wave sound. The beginning of the universe, there was a word sound in the beginning, was not a fixed point, but a huge primordial wave. The universe is not an empty vacuum, but an ocean of invisible inertial energy that ripples like waves. It was these fluctuating waves that existed before the particles. When the fluctuating waves superimpose and resonate, they take on geometric shapes. Here, energy is not consumed and extinguished, but transformed into a new driving force. In other words, it is a leap from old liquor to new liquor in new units. 4. Human acceleration, cosmic dissonance. The problem is that humans are upsetting this progressive balance. Nature regulates fluctuations with resonance and circulates them, but humans forcibly amplify fluctuations by applying artificial force. If the fluctuations caused by the collision of different pipes cannot be calmed by resonance, and explosive energy is continuously applied to them, the system becomes a runaway locomotive without brakes. The climate catastrophes and large-scale natural disasters we witness are not the anger of the earth. It is a scream in which the fluctuation of inertia that has lost its resonance bursts out due to artificial acceleration. 5. Again, into the flow. The wisdom that civilization needs to learn is clear. It is not about suppressing fluctuations with greater force, but about learning to read the fluctuations of space that already exist and resonate with their rhythms. Inertia is not something to be conquered, but a wave to ride on. When we reconcile with this primordial wave, the energy will not be consumed but will circulate infinitely and become the driving force of new creation. Chapter 4: The hidden symmetry of the Navier-Stokes and Riemann Zeta functions. Symmetry from spontaneous equilibrium to change. We have defined flying as a struggle for the past 300 years, a way of burning an engine, tearing through air, and gaining acceleration with force. This is Newton's physics, essentially the flight of a cannonball. But here, there is a being those flies thousands of kilometers without an engine or fuel. Birds do not fly in Newtonian fashion. Birds do not try to overcome air with force. The bird reads the structure of the field, called air, and then reads the column of hot air, the phase of the vortex, and the slope of air pressure. Position yourself within that structure. 1. The silence of the albatross. Albatross. They glide as if mocking the laws of physics. If you don't use force F, how can you maintain motion ma? The answer lies in the vortex of fluids that we dismissed as noise. There are two of the most famous unsolved problems in mathematics. One is the Navier-Stokes equation, which describes the flow of water. Whether the solution always exists in 3 dimensions, we don't know yet. The other is the Riemann hypothesis that the 0 points of the zeta function that govern the distribution of a few numbers are all above one straight line. It has not been proven for 160 years. Today, I would like to present an idea. These two problems can be the same problem. It is not strict proof. It is the starting point for thinking to explore structural similarities, but the similarity too deep to be called a coincidence. 2. Navier-Stokes, the war of goods and consensus. The biggest conundrum of modern physics, the Navier-Stokes equation, the nonlinear term that creates a vortex here, has long been called uncontrollable chaos. But what if this is actually 12 symmetry of order? In this equation, which describes the flow of fluids, the nonlinear convective port that creates vortices and chaos, has long been a realm of unconquered uncertainty. However, if we look at this turbulent fluctuation, not as a disorder but as a geometric development of inertia for energy conservation, a new world opens. The holy grail of fluid dynamics, the Navier-Stokes equation. The left and right sides of this expression represent two huge mathematical orders that support space. The nonlinear convective port on the left side is Euler's product. It is an explosion of creation in which a few fundamental inertias replicate and multiply each other to create an infinite path. Turbulence is not disorder, but the geometric development created by this multiplicative interaction. On the other hand, the astrological term on the right side is infinite series of the Riemann Zeta function. It is the process of gathering scattered energy back into the nodes of order, and it is the convergence of nature. 3. Symmetry of the Navier-Stokes equation and the Riemann Zeta function. In other words, The left side is multiplied. Just as a few meet to form the world, inertia multiplies with each other to create infinite variables. On the other hand, the right side is combined. It is the convergence of nature that gathers scattered energy back into order, the explosion of multiplication created by inertia, and the harmony of addition created by viscosity. The bird climbs on the point where these two forces meet, the harmonious node of the Riemann Zeta function. This is not flight, but levitation. That puts existence on top of the mathematical inevitability of the universe. The placement of the nonlinear term as the product of interactions and the linear viscous term as the sum of variance and convergence perfectly matches the physical phenomenon turbulence versus laminar flow with the mathematical structure. Euler product versus Zeta series. 4.1 are hidden on the right side. Let's look at the right side of the Navier-Stokes equation. They are pressure and viscous. Pressure port P. If you loosen this around the point mass, the pressure decays to 1r, and the pressure term, which is its inclination, decays to 1r. Star port mu. Under spherical symmetry conditions, outside the core, it also attenuates to 1r. This is no coincidence. In three-dimensional space, the surface area of a spherical surface is 4 pi r. If any influence is evenly spread across the sphere, the strength per unit area will always be 1r. Gravity, electromagnetic force, intensity of light, and the pressure and viscosity of the fluid all follow 1r for the same geometric reason. It is a language shared by everything that lives in a three-dimensional space. 5. When you add up, you get the zeta function. Now break down the fluid by scale. From the largest to the smallest vortex 1, 2, 3. It is expressed as a discrete scale of. The contribution of each scale is 1n. To add up the whole sigma 1n 114 19 116. This consensus value is pi 6. About 1.645. This is the Basel problem, the result that Euler first proved in 1734. And this is the value when S2 in the Riemann zeta function. Zeta 2 pi 6. The overall energy distribution of the fluid is represented by the Riemann zeta function. Notice the pi and the results. Pi is the language of circles and phrases. 1r is the result of spherical symmetry. So if you add up all 1r you will definitely get a pi. Mathematics remembers its origins, and this finite summation value is a mathematical expression of energy conservation, that the energy of a fluid converges rather than diverge. 6. Critical line Res 12. Now for the crux of the hypothesis. When the inertial force is distributed at 1 rs and the viscous force at 1 rs, we find the condition under which the two forces are balanced. Equilibrium condition S12 it. This is the Riemann threshold Res 12. S12 inertial force overwhelms viscosity. Nonlinear convective ports explode. Turbulence. Chaos. Unpredictable. S12 astrological force overwhelms inertia. Energy is dissipated as heat. Laminar flow. Stability. But dead order. S12 exact balance. The creativity of inertia and the stability of viscosity coexist. This is the point where the bird flies. This is the point where the earth revolves. Just as there are sophisticated 0 points at the point where the product of prime numbers meets the sum of natural numbers. In the Riemann zeta function, there are mathematical nodes in fluids, where the explosion of inertia and the convergence of viscosity form a perfect equilibrium. Birds are not born by force. It is to put oneself on the momentary node, where the energy of multiplication created by inertia and the order of sum, created by viscosity meet. It is a flight without consumption, a dynamic levitation that resonates with the essence of space. Riemann hypothesized that there is a non-named 0 point above this critical line. If this hypothesis is true, it means that prime numbers are distributed in a way that inertia and viscosity balance in nature. Prime numbers are not arbitrary. A prime number can be a mathematical trace of how nature distributes energy. 7. Euler product and energy cascade. Let's look at another expression of Riemann zeta, the Euler multiplication formula. Zeta s pi 11 ps. The product of prime numbers creates the sum of all integers. In fluid mechanics, the energy cascade is isomorphic to this. Energy diverges from large vortices to smaller vortices. Each scale contributes independently to create the entire turbulent structure. Prime and turbulent both seem irregular, but they have a regular pattern throughout. Why is the distribution of prime numbers so irregular? Yet the total sum is a beautiful pi 6? Why is the turbulent vortex so complex? Yet the energy spectrum follows the simple law of K? It could be for the same reason. Epilogue. This is a hypothesis. It is not strict proof. However, structural similarities are real, and historically the greatest mathematical discoveries began with the realization that two seemingly unrelated structures were, in fact, the same principle. If the Navier-Stokes problem and the Riemann hypothesis are the same, the key to solving both problems together will be in the same place. The key to it lies probably in the superposition of dynamic and static, the balance of inertia and viscosity, the threshold of change and stability. The way birds fly, the earth rotates, and the distribution of minorities can all be different. Names on the same principle. Chapter 5 Synthesis. What does superposition say? Birds do not try to beat the air. Instead, it places itself on a mathematical node that air has created itself, a grid of inertia. This is what dynamic levitation is. It's superimposed physics that floats without using force. Artificial forces disrupt harmony and bring disaster. But superposition using inertia creates a permanent cycle. The earth revolves around and birds fly, not because of consumption, but because we have surrendered ourselves to the rhythm of the universe. Isn't it the same with our lives? The artificial force but that pushes by force eventually leads to resistance and disaster. It can be said that true flight and true change lies in the aesthetics of superposition. That reads the flow of space and gently positions me in that order. We must no longer learn to fly like cannonballs, but to glide gracefully over the few melodies that the universe has hidden. It is to go beyond material limitations and materialism and enter the world of eternal cycles. The suffering that Jesus or Buddha spoke of is not a consuming life, but a new fuel for the flying emergency that closes the suffering. Chapter 6 Matter beyond materialism. The geometric meaning of non-materialistic symmetry. We call the world three-dimensional, but our thinking is trapped in a two-dimensional plane. In the world of Newtonian mechanics, that is, two-dimensional planar thinking, energy is always colliding, consuming, and eventually disappearing according to the law of entropy. The conflict and attrition competition we face may be because we only see the world as a flat plane. The moment the two-dimensional opposition is sublimated into a three-dimensional symmetry, friction disappears and energy enters a cyclical orbit that preserves itself. After all, three-dimensional is not just a box of horizontal, vertical, and height. It is not that energy stretches out in a straight line and dies, or walks in a circle, but that it is a spiritual world that transcends materialism, the physical limit where the old energy is transformed into new energy, and that the energy is preserved and manifested as a creative driving force, through symmetry between the second dimension and the third dimension through the harmony of the momentum. This process can be explained by the Navier-Stokes equation, the Riemann Zeta function, and Euler's product. This non-materialistic symmetry will be explained in the next video.